I love to think about why we do what we do. Especially in the company I run, Onward Media Group, we're telling stories all the time for really interesting business leaders. And one of the lessons that I've learned almost over the last 10 years doing this line of work is that you need a good why. You need to understand why you're doing it. And the studies show that across the board, businesses and people that have a great why and a defined purpose, they tend to grow better, they tend to be around more aligned people. There's so many studies and statistics on the effectiveness of purpose. So one of the business leaders that recently entered our lives, Jon Duschinsky, is a fascinating man. He does keynotes about this stuff. He coaches teams, he coaches leaders. And so I brought him into Onward's media environment here at Catalyst 137 to conduct a little interview about purpose and some of his insights and tips on how we can all think about this subject in a better way. How does purpose improve the quality of relationships?
Purpose improves the quality of relationships because it takes those relationships to a level where you're able to have conversations about the things that actually matter. It's like, yeah, you can talk about the price of cheese and the weather in Newfoundland, that's great, but there's something that happens when you're starting to connect with somebody about the things that truly light them up. It's like there's a different level to that. And in order to kind of connect with that, you have to be willing to let somebody else see you. Because purpose it's a very personal thing. It's like my purpose is mine, it's not yours or anybody else's. And in order to kind of stand in that space, I have to let you see that part of me that's really kind of intimate. It's who I am. It's the thing that lights me up. It's the thing that drives me. So it's as much about having meaningful things to talk about as it is about being willing to let others actually see you and not walking around all the time with the massive mask on.
That's really interesting. So purpose is ours. It's unique to people. How does purpose show us who we have to be in our daily lives?
So one way of thinking about purpose is like a criteria for decision making. I often talk about the fact that we have two paths that we can live in life. We have the path of our predictable future, which is where we're just doing the same shit and we're getting the same results. And we can play that movie forward and know 20, 30 years what's going to be happening. Or there's what I call your highest value path, which is when you're truly in connection with your purpose. You're in service of something that's bigger than you. And when you're in that space, what you're doing is you're using your purpose as a guide for how you show up and how you make decisions. There's a wonderful old wives' tale about how Apple ended up making an iPhone, which is the Steve Jobs showed up in a board meeting saying, "Hey, I want to make a phone." And the board were like, "Yeah, but Steve, we don't do phones. We don't know how to do a phone." And he was like, "Yeah, but I believe our purpose is computers for people, and I believe that people aren't going to want to walk around with a music listening device, an internet connecting device, a camera in their bag. They're going to want one thing that does it all." And that was the moment where Apple decided to make the iPhone. Yeah, you can put all the numbers in front of people, but at the end of the day, does it serve our purpose? Yes or no? And that's often the thing that allows you to make the big leaps into the unknown, because you know that that's why you're here, both as an individual and as a company.
Can you talk about how can you talk about the ripple effect of standing for something, whether it be with a team, stakeholders, customers, maybe even family?
Yeah, like people want to be around people who they know what they stand for. So there's that idea, if I know what you stand for, I can choose to stand with you. Or I can choose to not stand with you, but at least I know what you stand for. And so if you're prepared to own that as an individual and as a company, you're like, okay, this is what I stand for, this is what we stand for. You're not going to please all the people. But the people who are like, I stand for that too. I got it. I want to be part of that tribe. I want to, I want to buy your products rather than your competitors' products because you stand for the same thing that I stand for, and I feel that connection to you. I mean, Patagonia is perhaps the cliched but beautiful example of this. Why are people prepared to pay 3 times the price of a North Face fleece? Well, because Patagonia stands for saving the planet, and they want to wear a fleece that says, hey, I'm saving the planet too, and pay 3 times the price for it.
Patagonia is a good example because we were just talking about how they've embedded their purpose into the experience. Can you talk about how purpose can contribute to a better brand experience?
Yeah, Patagonia is the example I use for this. If your very expensive Patagonia fleece, the zipper stops working or there's a rip in it or something, you can send it off to Patagonia and they'll repair it for free and send it back to you.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't just magically appear as a company offering. So they sat down, some people in that company sat down and said, we stand for a world where we create less waste. We stand for a world where we're creating more circularity and less of a linear economy. And yet we're creating these garments, and often people throw them away because the zip breaks or because the pocket rips.
Yeah.
Well, then that's contributing to the linear economy, and we want to stand for circularity, so why don't we design and build a part of our business where people can send in their clothes and we'll repair them for them? And because that's what we stand for, why don't we do it for free? And it was intentional, it was thought through, it was designed as a way of helping their customers experience what they stand for and to be part of that. And it's such a beautiful and simple but yet really clever example. And every company, they can do that. As long as you're clear on what you stand for, as long as you're clear on your purpose, you can design your brand experience so that your customers and your stakeholders experience it and live it with you. And you know, when people, I've seen friends who've got their package back from their clothes repaired by Patagonia, and they're beaming. Yeah? So it's clearly creating that relationship as well.
Is discovering one's purpose challenging? Do you have like a tip for even getting started with something like that?
You want me to answer that in 60 seconds?
30 if possible.
30, okay. So yeah, I have a tip. And I'm not going to share it here. So the basic principle around purpose that I've discovered, and I'm not pretending that this is the only way one accesses this, but what I've discovered and the way that I work, and it works, is that we first need to recognize the operating system that runs us when we're in this kind of predictable future space of just doing what we do. Yeah. Most of the time we live in an autopilot kind of space. We're going through the motions. We're repeating behavior patterns and strategies without thinking about them.
Yeah.
So we have to become aware of that first. It's like you have to hold a mirror up to yourself, and it's really hard to do it to oneself.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm here to hold up the mirror for you, yeah, so that you can see those patterns. And then when you can see them, you can catch them and have an agency over them. And because you can have agency over them, you can lean into something different. Now, how one reveals one's purpose, I have pathways for doing that. And there are multiple pathways to do that. But the purpose is not something that you kind of need to sit on a beach in Bali and go hum for 3 weeks and expect some kind of divine intervention. The purpose is actually something that's calling you. So I liken it to a phone call that's been coming in, and you've heard the phone ringing, but you've like put it on silent and stuck it in a corner somewhere because you know that there's something calling you, but you're scared to take the call. So it's about helping people literally pick up that phone, take the call, and lean into whatever it is that is calling them. And it can be terrifying. It can be terrifying. And that's where the fun is.
Terrifying but worth it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to ask you one more question about articulating purpose. Actually, what are your thoughts on just the concept of articulating purpose? Is it behavior that you demonstrate? Is it a form of leadership, the way you talk to people? What's the best way to articulate someone's purpose?
It's all of that. I mean, My purpose is to connect other people with theirs. Now, what does that mean? It means that I have to do that. Yeah. If I'm like, my purpose is to connect other people with theirs, and I spend all of my days as a hermit painting watercolors, I'm not living it. But it's also about who I'm being in that space. Yeah, if I'm showing up as if I'm showing up as an arrogant asshole, then what I'm asking you to do is to be vulnerable in this space, to connect. Yeah, you connect with your purpose by letting other people see you. That's part of the journey. You're not going to do that if I'm showing up like some kind of arrogant asshole. So I have to be in alignment with that purpose, as well as do in alignment with that purpose.
That's amazing.
And none of us do all the time. Just ask my wife; she'll tell you that I can be a complete asshole. But it's just like, but then there's the ability to catch that you're doing that, and then go, okay, hold on, I come back to it.
Yeah. Call to action. What's the best way for people to find you and reach you and possibly even work with you?
So I have a website that is quite atrocious, so I apologize. It's a 2024 project. We're going to get the website looking a little bit better, a little bit more functional. There's these guys called Onward Media Group. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do really good videos and social media stuff. So
really?
I'd recommend them. They're great.
Okay.
And I have a program called, I work with companies and leaders. I help organizations do this from a sort of strategy perspective, like how do you create your company purpose and how do you bring it to life? And we have a process called the purpose paradigm, which takes companies through that. There's a whole bunch more stuff on that on the website. We also have programs for leaders, for individuals. We have a program called the Purpose-Driven Leadership Journey, which is about connecting you to your purpose and then creating ways that you can go forth into the world in that space. It's really cool. It is transformational. We do that with groups of individuals. We also do that within companies. So yeah, website.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool.